Hey guys, today we're going to talk about Matthew chapter 21, verses 23 through 27, continuing with our Holy Week devotion series. Yesterday, Andy led you through Palm Sunday and the events there, and here, starting today, we see Jesus continuing to teach. And the leaders, the chief priests and elders, are not real thrilled about this. And so Jesus is in the temple teaching, and they approach him, and they have a question for him. Verse 23 tells us, "By what authority are you doing these things, and who gave you this authority?" They are calling out Jesus in front of the very crowd he is trying to teach, wanting him to confess to being the Son of God right in front of all these people. But Jesus answers them with a question of his own. And now the priests and elders realize that they are in a tough spot. Because if they say that John's baptism is from heaven, then they know that Jesus' answer will be, "Well, if you knew that, why didn't you believe him?" But if they say that John's baptism was of man, then the crowds, who keep in mind 2 days ago they just saw throwing down cloaks and palm branches and shouting, "Hosanna to the King of Kings." They knew who they thought this man was. And so if they said that John's baptism was of man, then this crowd would be really, really mad and they'd have a riot on their hands. So they decide to cut their losses and just say, "Yeah, we don't know." So Jesus looks at him and says, "Well, then I don't know either." So many things that I take away from this. The first is that we are guilty of being like the priests and elders in Jerusalem and questioning Jesus' authority, even though we know exactly who he is and whose authority he came under. We are guilty of testing him and making him prove repeatedly his authority in our own lives. We should instead be resting in that authority, especially in these times. If Jesus came today to preach to us, we would probably first ask him for credentials and why we should even listen to him to begin with. The second thing that I see is Jesus' answer to them. He doesn't accuse them of trying to trap him, even though he knows that's what they're doing. He doesn't rebuke them for not believing. He doesn't storm off without answering. Instead, he asks them a question that makes them examine themselves. He completely turns the table on them. The truth in our lives is that when we question the authority of Christ or attempt to shrug off that feeling we have of his authority in our lives, he often leads us to a place where we have to examine ourselves and do some real searching for how we ourselves answer some really tough questions. And finally, when we are unwilling to answer uncomfortable questions, we get uncomfortable answers. The elders and priests were asked a question in which neither answer left them satisfied, so they just didn't answer. When we refuse to answer the questions of God because we don't like the options, we need to be prepared that he may not reveal to us the answers that we are asking of him. So a couple questions to leave you with today and for you to think about during your devotion time. During this time of isolation and uncertainty, what questions are you asking God that may be in fact questioning his authority? Do you believe in the authority of God and his power in your life, or are you letting the circumstances we currently live in have that power in your life? And second, what is something you have seen that reminds you of God's authority during this time? Look for stories of healing and for people doing good for others. And if you're struggling to find some, be that for somebody today. So that's my challenge that we leave you with. Go be the hope of Jesus to somebody today. Have a great rest of your day.